Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports, at B Marcello on Twitter, is with us now. What's up, Brandon? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot. Before we get to the big picture, let's localize it a little bit. You're very close to the Arkansas program. You covered the Auburn program, so you know what a thorn in the side this has been for Arkansas, this particular game. But we were just talking about it. When you look at the numbers, this seems like Arkansas should go to Jordan-Hare Stadium and win, but they just don't do that often.
Yeah, I think Auburn's won 6 straight against Arkansas, and I think the last time they were there was that crazy non-fumble game with Bo Nix. I actually kind of think Auburn's going to win this one. Arkansas's secondary is just really terrible, and if as long as Auburn doesn't, for some reason, try to make this a one-dimensional game just by running the ball quite a bit, which I don't think they will. I think they've got a very good shot at beating the Razorbacks, even with a team that's quote unquote coming off a 52-35 victory at BYU. This Razorbacks team is giving up points to everybody and anybody, and it's difficult to play there in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And I know everything's kind of rocky right now, but I don't care who the coach is at Auburn right now. I think anybody in the SEC, if they get Arkansas at home this season, here in this later half of the season, has a shot.
Well, the rest of this schedule for Auburn is brutal, as you know, Brandon. And, more than likely, or it seems like 100%, Brian Harsin's going to be gone after this year. Do you think he coaches somewhere else next year, or you think he takes a year off?
I bet he takes a year off, goes to Cancun again. And
I would.
I actually enjoy that one, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know him very well. I've only talked to him a couple times. I don't know what his aspirations
Well, let me rephrase
are.
the question. Do you think he will be a wanted commodity for another program?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, unless there's someone in the Chris Peterson coaching tree that he can kind of reach out to or something along those lines. But I don't think he'll be someone that everybody's just tripping over to be hired as an offensive coordinator or even really a quarterback's coach. In fact, I'm trying to think of a staff out there that would maybe want him. I'm not trying to pile on to the guy, but I don't know who would hire him as a coordinator. Now, to be quite honest, I do think he'd fit in very well as the head coach at Arizona State. I just don't know if that's kind of the path they want to go down for their next head coach. I do think there are spots as a head coach that Brian Harsin would fit into. And in fact, like I said, Richard Arizona State, somewhere out west. I know there's this whole idea of like, he's just a coach out of place and out of time. Just throw him out west. But I mean, to be quite honest, that is kind of the position he's in. I think he would do very well in a school that's west of the Mississippi River.
Yeah, and a rebuild project probably would be a good place for him to land. Brandon Marcello's with us. We in the media do a good job of fueling ourselves sometimes, and at times I feel like we can get out of whack on what is a real possibility of happening. There's no doubt underachieving Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, but there is no way in reality, is there, that Texas A&M is anywhere close to making a coaching change. You've done this for a long time. Where is Jimbo Fisher's footing right now in College Station?
He's on solid footing right now if he wants to stay there and see this thing through, which I think he does. There's mounting pressure there. Whenever you have kind of internal strife with your fan base, your boosters and everything, that does make your job obviously more difficult. Just ask any Auburn coach ever. But, I think that the noise is so loud, it's so difficult to ignore and block out. I don't care what kind of coach you are. And I think we're in a position here where we're setting up for a mass exodus of players to the transfer portal at Texas A&M this offseason. And, I wrote in my piece about the hot seat. And I think Jimbo Fisher's like number 6 on the list, just because, to be quite honest, I'm not expecting the coaching carousel to be all that hot and wild this year. But Jimbo's in a weird spot because a lot of this drama is percolating, and we're seeing it already kind of bubbling to the surface. So what happens if there's just all this negative stuff keeps happening? Players start leaving to the exiting for the transfer portal in droves. The recruiting class starts to fall apart a little bit. Does Jimbo Fisher want to be a part of that? I think he wants to see it through, yeah. But, that noise will just grow and grow and grow. And I think in a lot of ways, Texas A&M could make a situation that's not really all that bad, to be quite honest, even worse by, poisoning itself with all this drama. They've still got a lot of talent, and they got more talent coming in. The talent that they're trying to lean on right now is young. The big issue for A&M is just Jimbo Fisher being reluctant to change things with that offense. I think at some point he will going into this offseason, but I think the best thing that A&M can do right now for itself is to stay out of its own way and not become this laughing stock because they're shooting themselves in the foot by causing and stirring up so much drama, because that's only going to make these players want to leave more. And as it stands right now, I don't think we're anywhere near done to the amount of players who are going to be leaving Texas A&M here in this offseason.
Yeah, and that's always a bad look. I get hung up on words when I'm doing interviews, and you said if he wants to be there, and you talked a little bit about that, but he's not a kind of guy who would be like of another school, and I don't know why, but we'll say Auburn. If there's a big booster at Auburn that was interested in Jimbo Fisher and has always been interested in Jimbo Fisher, would he somehow work? Does he look like the kind of guy who could work a deal with Texas A&M to get some money and then still want to go coach somewhere else? When you say if he wants to be there, or you just see him walking away if he decided to do that someday?
Yeah, I think he would walk away. I don't think he would try to get another job somewhere else at Auburn. That gets a little bit more messy as far as just the financials and everything. But what is Jimbo's mindset with all of this? You talk to people around that program, you kind of got to wonder what he's thinking right now and what's going on. I do think he does want to stay there and continue on with this, but the drama and everything that's been pushing around there in the background's been going on for a while now, obviously. And really, I think we started seeing the bubbles pop on top of the water when he went after Nick Saban this spring and summer. We all took it as kind of entertainment, enjoyment, but there was something bubbling even inside Jimbo Fisher a little bit, and that came out finally. And now you've got all this going on with these past 2 seasons, and does Jimbo Fisher see himself as someone that feels like that time has passed him by, or do I even want to be a part of this? I think he's got to look in the mirror himself and look at, like, am I the problem or are the other people the problem? And if he sees himself as, the problem, then he's got to make changes. And if he's not willing to make those changes, like hiring an offensive coordinator, then at some point in the next couple of years, the decision will be made for him, and he'll be fired potentially, or maybe he just decides to walk off into the sunset.
Brandon Marcello is with us, 24/7 Sports, at B Marcello on Twitter. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Since that season opener against Notre Dame, Ohio State's margins of victory, Brandon, have been 33, 56, 31, 39, 29, and 44. They go to Penn State this week. Will they play a single-digit game all year long? Do you think even Michigan included in that?
I think Michigan, yeah. I think the Michigan game will.
Yeah, but not before then.
Yeah, maybe not. I do think the Penn State game is going to be close. I've been saying that since the offseason, and I'll stick to it to see if I'm right. I think Penn State's defense actually the better on the schedule is probably one of the better defenses to match up against Ohio State because of personnel and how they match up. That might not prove to be true, obviously, on Saturday. I'm not saying Penn State's going to win, but you also look, I think I have to look back at this stat. Our production crew did this research. I believe every game that James Franklin's coached against Ohio State, I think he's covered all but one.
Wow.
And none of those, he hasn't lost by more than 14 against Ohio State. So I think it's going to be a close game this week. Now, Ohio State, I think we're going to see – this is just my gut. I think we're going to see them kind of hit a little bit of a valley here for the next couple of weeks until they get to Michigan. We'll see. But, yeah, I mean, Ohio State should win. Even against Michigan, to be quite honest, because their talent and the way they play offensively, they should win every game by double digits the rest of the way the regular season. And even the Michigan game, because, of course, that's at Ohio State this year. Michigan's defensive line, I know they've put up good stats, but you watch them, they don't get to the passer really all that effectively and consistently, and, boy, that's going to be trouble against Ohio State.
Okay, because it's Halloween weekend, I'm going to ask you a crazy hypothetical that will never happen, but if it did happen, if Illinois ran the table and won the Big Ten with 1 loss, and LSU ran the table, won the SEC with 2 losses, who gets in front?
Illinois.
I agree.
I think Illinois would.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a win over Ohio State at the very end. That's going to be hard to say.
Yeah, but LSU would still knock off Bama and probably Georgia.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, don't think it'll happen, but,
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, yeah, obviously, that's a very interesting hypothetical. That's what makes college football great, is we actually have these conversations.
But it is pretty insane what Bielema's doing in year 2 and really what Brian Kelly's doing in year 1.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Here's the other thing. I actually saw this late last night because I wrote a story on Illinois last night. Illinois does not own a win right now against a team that's currently ranked. And I think they're one of maybe 4 teams that are ranked right now that can say that. So the schedule isn't as tough as it has, as maybe some people have thought, even though they played a quote-unquote ranked Minnesota team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the back half of that schedule is loaded.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad I'm not on the playoff committee.
Yeah. 2 interesting SEC games. Better chance we see an upset of Tennessee with Kentucky in town, or can Florida make it interesting with Georgia this weekend? Which game do you think ends up being the most interesting contest?
Kentucky and Tennessee, maybe. No, I don't think either of them are going to be close.
Really?
To be quite honest.
You like Tennessee, Georgia to stick the landing and go into next week's 1 versus 3 matchup? Wow.
Yeah, I do. I'm interested to see Georgia if they play Jalen Carter and A.D. Mitchell, whether they're actually going to be available. They're their 2 best players, and they're out. That team Georgia's going to skyrocket, I think, when they get especially A.D. Mitchell back on offense, because that's kind of what's been slowing them down from going to the vertical game quite a bit. He's pretty much been out since week 2. I think Georgia's about to skyrocket, but I want to see if they actually play. I think they're holding them back for Tennessee. But Florida, I don't see it with them. They're running out of gas. And as much as we talk and pile on to Anthony Richardson at quarterback, man, his second half stats, go look at his split stats. His second half stats in games are just terrible. Terrible. And Georgia, they're going to lean on you and just smother you. That third quarter could be very ugly for Florida, and I think Georgia's just going to absolutely stomp them. And then with Tennessee, Kentucky's offensive line, as we know, is just terrible. Will Levis does everything he can to kind of upgrade everything around him, but I mean, Tennessee's going to go up 21-3 or 21-0, and Kentucky's going to have no way to fight back. And I think those 2 games could get very ugly.
All right, he is Brandon Marcello. Go read his stuff there at 24/7 Sports. Follow him on Twitter at @BMarcello, 24/7 Sports, at @BMarcello on Twitter. Brandon, as always, thank you for the time. Enjoy the football this weekend.
All right, see you guys.
All right, buddy, take care. Brandon Marcello with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.